Chapter 1. The Perfect Job. I remember the day I got the job like it was yesterday. It was one of those gray, chilly Mondays that make you question every life decision you've ever made. I just finished a string of temp jobs that barely covered rent, and I was starting to feel like the walls were closing in. So when I got the call back about the nanny position, I thought maybe, just maybe, my luck had finally turned. Her name was Clara. She sounded warm over the phone. Polished. Professional. She said she was looking for someone reliable and intuitive to care for her 4-year-old son while she worked from home and traveled occasionally for business. The pay? Generous. The hours? Flexible. And when she mentioned that they lived in a beautiful neighborhood just outside the city, I didn't even hesitate. My husband, Tom, was all for it. He smiled when I told him, gave me a hug and said, "See? I told you something good would come along." He even joked that maybe I could finally stop stressing about money and start thinking about that photography class I'd been wanting to take. At the time, that meant a lot. We'd been married for almost 5 years, and like any couple, we had our share of ups and downs, mostly about finances or how we spent our time. But he'd always been supportive. Or at least, that's what I thought back then. When I showed up at Clara's house for the interview, I was stunned. It was gorgeous. 3 stories of clean white brick, manicured hedges, and a front door so shiny it practically gleamed. Inside, everything looked like it had been ripped from a luxury home magazine. Vaulted ceilings, soft white furniture, and the faint smell of vanilla and lavender drifting through the air. Clara herself was equally elegant. She looked to be in her late 30s, with sleek chestnut hair, a slim frame, and the kind of effortless style that makes you feel underdressed no matter what you're wearing. She offered me tea in a delicate porcelain cup and smiled like we were old friends. And then I met Liam. He was a shy little thing. Big hazel eyes, soft curls, and a quiet demeanor that made him seem older than 4. He clung to Clara's leg at first, barely whispering his name, but after a few minutes of playing with blocks, he warmed up to me. By the end of the hour, he was showing me his favorite dinosaur toys and asking if I could come back tomorrow. Clara seemed impressed. She offered me the job on the spot. I said yes, of course. It felt like a dream come true. And for a while, it was. I'd arrive each morning around 8 a.m., sometimes earlier if Clara had early meetings. Liam and I developed a sweet little routine. Breakfast together in the sunlit kitchen, story time on the plush reading rug in his room, afternoon walks through the nearby park. He was gentle and thoughtful, curious about the world but cautious, like he'd already learned to be careful with his heart. Clara mostly stayed in her office upstairs, though sometimes she'd join us for lunch or bring me a coffee as a thank you. She was friendly, but distant, the kind of woman who always had somewhere to be, something to do, even when she was home. Still, she was kind. She thanked me often, praised my connection with Liam, and never once made me feel like just the help. The house, the child, the job, everything was so perfect. Too perfect, maybe. But I wasn't thinking that way yet. At home, Tom would ask about my day. I'd tell him how sweet Liam was, how beautiful the house was, how I could get used to working there long term. He always smiled and said, "I'm happy for you, babe. You deserve this." And I believed him. I had no idea, of course. No idea what secrets that perfect house held. No idea who Liam really was. No idea how deeply entwined my life was about to become with Clara's. But that came later. For now, I was just the nanny. And I thought that was all I'd ever be. Chapter 2. Familiar Eyes. Weeks passed. Liam and I settled into a rhythm that felt almost familial. Every morning, he'd greet me with a sleepy smile and his favorite stuffed bear, Paddington. He insisted I pour his orange juice like Mommy does, with a twisty straw, and he always asked for the same 2 bedtime stories during his afternoon naps, The Very Hungry Caterpillar and Where the Wild Things Are. I'd read them in a whisper while he drifted off, tucked beneath a dinosaur-themed blanket in his sun-drenched room. He started calling me Nana, his way of saying nanny, and Clara thought it was adorable. "He's never taken to anyone this fast," she told me one day, sipping coffee at the kitchen island. "You must have a gift." I smiled. I loved that boy. I mean, I know you're not supposed to fall in love with the children you nanny, but how could I not? He was sweet, smart, gentle, and there was something else. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. It started with a look. One afternoon, Liam was showing me his crayon drawings, scribbly houses and smiley stick figures with oddly specific details. In one, there was a man with a beard and a blue shirt. I asked him who it was. "That's Daddy," he said casually. I froze. "Oh?" I asked carefully. "Your daddy?" Clara had never mentioned a father. Not once. In fact, when I asked about Liam's family during my first week, she'd said vaguely, "It's just the two of us." But here he was, Liam, little Liam, drawing a man and calling him Daddy, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I didn't press. I laughed it off. "Nice drawing," I said. But something stuck with me, and then I started to notice it, really notice it. The way Liam wrinkled his nose when he giggled. The way his left eyebrow arched ever so slightly when he was curious. The dimple in his right cheek when he smiled. Tiny things. Inconsequential things. Except they weren't. They were familiar. And one morning, while I was tying Liam's shoes, I realized why. He smiled at me, wide, toothy, pure. And in that moment, it hit me like a punch to the chest. He looked just like Tom. My husband. Same dimple. Same eyes. Same exact mannerisms. I actually laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. What were the odds? I stared at Liam for a long moment, longer than I probably should have, and in my head I whispered, "No. That's impossible. You're just imagining things. Kids look like all kinds of people." But the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it grew louder. At home that night, I watched Tom eat dinner. I studied his face, the curve of his jaw, the exact shade of his hazel eyes, the little freckle beneath his left ear. And all I could see was Liam. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask. I didn't want to ask. But a seed had been planted. And once it was there, I couldn't stop watering it. Unintentionally, maybe, but constantly. The next day, I noticed a photo on Clara's hallway table I hadn't seen before. It was tucked behind a stack of unopened mail, but something about the silver frame caught my eye. I picked it up. The photo was faded, not recent, and in it, Clara was younger with longer hair, standing close to a man whose face was just slightly out of focus. His arm was around her waist. They were smiling. Cozy. Comfortable. Intimate. Something about the man's build looked familiar. So did the shape of his hands. I squinted. But before I could study it further, Clara appeared behind me, startling me. "Oh," she said, snatching the photo from my hand. "That's an old one. College party." I meant to pack it away. Her tone was light, but her eyes were sharp. I muttered an apology. She said it was fine. But I could tell. She didn't want me looking too closely. And suddenly, I didn't want to not look. Chapter 3. The cracks in the picture. After the photo incident, something shifted. Clara was still polite, still said good morning, still smiled in passing, but her energy changed. There was a stiffness to her now, a delay in her responses, like she was measuring every word. I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe I was being paranoid. But Liam noticed too. He started clinging to me more. Asked if I could stay for dinner, just this once. He didn't want a nap unless I stayed in the room. It was sweet, but also strange. Like even he felt something was off in the air. And kids, they always know. The following week, I asked Clara, gently, about Liam's father. We were in the kitchen. She was unloading groceries. I was prepping snacks for Liam's playdate. I kept my tone casual. "Hey, I've been meaning to ask. Does Liam see his dad? He mentioned him the other day." Her back was turned, but I saw her pause mid-reach. A subtle hesitation. Just for a second. Then, "No," she said quickly. "He's not in the picture." I nodded, pretending I didn't notice how fast she said it. "Got it," I replied, keeping my voice light. "Just wondering." She turned around, her smile a little too wide. "Liam sometimes makes things up. His imagination's wild lately." I nodded again, but the knot in my stomach twisted tighter. Liam didn't make things up. He was observant, yes, and curious, but not a liar. If he said he knew his dad, he knew something. That night, I brought it up to Tom. We were in bed. The room was dark, quiet. I was staring at the ceiling. "Hey," I said slowly. "Have you ever heard of a woman named Clara?" He shifted beside me. "Clara who?" I shrugged. "Just Clara. She's my boss. I don't think I've mentioned her full name." Silence. Then, "Nope. Doesn't ring a bell. A beat too long. A tone too flat." I turned my head toward him. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his tension. The way his breathing slowed, like he was consciously controlling it. "Okay," I said. "Just curious. You both went to school around the same time, right? Figured maybe your paths crossed." He laughed, too loud. I barely remember anyone from back then. It was a blur. But I remembered something now. Something small. Years ago, we were scrolling through old college photos on his laptop. Just a few. Random ones. And I remembered, barely, seeing a woman who looked a lot like Clara. Her hair was darker then. But the smile, the posture, it felt familiar now. Back then, I didn't care. She was a face in a crowd. Now that face was my boss. And possibly more than that. Over the next few days, I began to observe everything more closely. Liam's bedtime stories? He always picked the same two, the exact ones Tom used to say were his childhood favorites. Liam's favorite food? Spaghetti with cut-up hot dogs. Tom's weirdest comfort meal. Liam's sleepy expression? Identical to the one Tom made when he watched late-night TV and started dozing off. It wasn't just appearance anymore. It was mannerisms, preferences, patterns. It was uncanny. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. But I was now looking at a child every day who shared more with my husband than even I did. And Clara, the mysterious, perfectly composed Clara, was now someone I couldn't fully trust. Still, I had no proof, no dates, no names, no smoking gun. Until, one Friday afternoon, Liam handed me something. We were playing in the living room. He was flipping through a box of old art supplies when he pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Look," he said proudly. "I drew my whole family." I unfolded the paper. Crayon figures filled the page. Liam in the center. Clara beside him. A dog that didn't exist. And on the other side, a man. Beard. Blue shirt. Glasses. He looked eerily, painfully, like Tom. "What's this?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. "That's my daddy," Liam said simply. "He doesn't live with us, but Mommy says he loves me a lot." I stared at the drawing. My throat went dry. Then Liam added something else. Something that made my heart stop cold. "Mommy says I'm not supposed to talk about him." Chapter 4. Secrets Behind Smiles. After Liam's drawing, I couldn't breathe properly for days. I kept playing his voice in my head. "Mommy says I'm not supposed to talk about him." I smiled and nodded at the time, not wanting to scare him, but inside I was screaming. That wasn't the kind of thing a 4-year-old makes up. Clara had told him that. Explicitly. And if there was nothing to hide, why say it at all? I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. I needed proof. Because no matter how strong my suspicions were, I couldn't risk blowing up my marriage, and my own life, based on gut feelings and a crayon sketch. So I waited. I watched. And I started digging. That weekend, while Tom was at the gym, I pulled out his old laptop. He hadn't used it in a while. His new one was password protected, but this one? I remembered the login. Our wedding date. Pathetic, right? I told myself I wasn't snooping. Just looking. For peace of mind. For clarity. But let's be real, I was looking for lies. I went into his email first. Not the current inbox, the archived folders. And there, buried deep under layers of spam and work notes, I found them. Emails from Clara. Some were old, 5, 6, even 7 years ago. Some were casual. Others weren't. "I miss you. You left your hoodie again. Smells like you. I think I'm late. I don't know what to do. Don't worry. I won't ruin your perfect little life. My hands were shaking. One email had a subject line I'll never forget. You don't have to be the father. I just need you to be honest. I stared at the screen, mouth dry, stomach in free fall. Tom had replied. Only once, but enough. Clara, I told you, I can't be involved. You said it was over. Please don't contact me again. That was 4 years ago. Right around the time Liam would have been born. I slammed the laptop shut, trembling. My mind raced, past conversations, strange moments, his weird reaction when I first mentioned Clara's name. How he never asked to meet her. How he never showed any interest in my job after the first week. He wasn't supportive. He was scared. Because he knew. And Clara, she knew too. Which meant this wasn't some tragic coincidence. It was a setup. But why? Why would she hire me, of all people? Did she know I was Tom's wife? I had to find out. I needed to know whether I had stumbled into a nightmare, or been led straight into it. The next morning, I arrived at Clara's house early. Earlier than usual. She wasn't expecting me until 8. I came at 7:30. She was in her bathrobe, barely awake, holding a cup of coffee. She blinked at me in the doorway. "Oh," she said, surprised. "You're early." I smiled sweetly. I figured I'd help Liam with breakfast. He likes the bear pancakes. She hesitated. "Right, well, come in. He's still asleep." I stepped inside like nothing was wrong. But everything was. That day, I watched Clara more carefully than ever. Her subtle pauses. Her tendency to deflect when I mentioned anything personal. Her smile, always just a little too tight when Liam said something innocent but revealing. Like when he told me he wanted to make a card for Daddy, and Clara quickly changed the subject to his math puzzle. Or when he asked why Daddy never visited and she pretended not to hear. She was hiding something, and I needed answers. So I made a choice. That night, I waited until Tom was asleep. Then I messaged Clara. I told her we needed to talk. Alone. Outside of work. Just us. She didn't reply until the next morning. Her text was short. Meet me at the cafe near my house. 6 p.m. No Liam. No emojis. No warmth. Just cold, clinical efficiency. She knew why I was asking. And for the first time since I started working for her, I think she was scared too. Chapter 5. Coffee, Lies, and Quiet Confessions. The cafe Clara chose was quiet. Upscale. The kind of place with marble tabletops, soft jazz in the background, and baristas who judge your shoes. I got there early. My hands were ice cold. I kept checking the time, my phone, the door. I didn't know exactly what I was going to say, only that I had to say something. At 6:04 p.m., she walked in. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a low bun. Designer coat. She looked tired. Not the polished poised Clara I saw every day. This Clara had dark circles under her eyes. Tension in her jaw. She sat down across from me, smoothed her sleeve, and met my gaze. "I figured this was coming," she said quietly. I stared at her, feeling everything and nothing at once. "You knew who I was when you hired me, didn't you?" She didn't blink. I did. My breath caught. "How long?" Clara looked down, then back up. "Since before Liam was born." The air around us went completely still. I swallowed hard. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you do that? Why let me into your home, let me care for your child, your son, knowing who I was? Knowing who my husband is?" Clara exhaled slowly. She wasn't defensive. Not even angry. Just tired. "Because I didn't know what else to do," she said. "I was desperate. I needed someone I could trust. Someone Liam would feel safe with. And yes, part of me wanted to see if you knew. If he had told you. I guess I wanted to look you in the eye and see the kind of woman he chose over me. That stung more than I thought it would." "So what?" I said. "You hired me as some twisted social experiment?" "No," she snapped, then softened her tone. "No. I hired you because Liam deserved better. Because I knew the kind of man Tom is. Charming, yes, but selfish. He walked away from both of us. I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice by hiring a stranger who'd walk out too. I stared at her. My voice dropped. Is Liam his? She nodded. No hesitation. No drama. Yes. Tom is his father. My throat tightened. I wanted to cry, scream, laugh, anything. Did you ever tell him? I asked. Her lips tightened. I did. Once. When I found out I was pregnant. He panicked. Said he couldn't be involved. Said he was married, newly at the time. That it was too complicated. He begged me not to ruin his life. I felt sick. So he knew, I whispered. This whole time. Clara nodded. I told him I didn't want his money. I didn't want anything from him. I just wanted him to know. And he made it very clear. He wanted nothing to do with us. I sat back, stunned. Every memory of Tom, his reassurances, his calm demeanor, his fake support of this job, now felt like a lie wrapped in a smile. Clara looked at me. I never meant to hurt you, she said. And I never once said a bad word about you to Liam. He doesn't know the full story. All he knows is his daddy doesn't live with us. That's all I've ever told him. And you think that's enough? I said, shaking. He deserves to know the truth. Clara leaned in. Does he? He's 4. He deserves love, not drama. He has a roof over his head, food on the table, and people who care about him. What he doesn't need is a man who only shows up when it's convenient, or a broken home torn apart by secrets you didn't ask for. She wasn't wrong, and that made it worse. The silence between us stretched long and heavy. Finally, I whispered, I loved him. I trusted him. She nodded slowly. So did I. We sat in that silence for a while. 2 women connected by the same man, one chosen, one discarded, both betrayed in different ways. Eventually, Clara spoke again, her voice softer now. You're a good nanny. Liam loves you. You've been more of a parent to him these past few months than Tom ever was. But I understand if you don't want to come back. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because despite everything, I still cared about Liam. That little boy with my husband's eyes and my heart wrapped around his tiny fingers. But I didn't know what came next. What I'd tell Tom. What I'd tell myself. All I knew was, the truth was finally out, and nothing would ever be the same again. Chapter 6. The Breaking Point. I didn't go to work the next morning. I texted Clara, simply, I need time. Please give Liam a hug from me. She replied within minutes. Of course. Take what you need. I appreciated her calmness, her lack of drama. But I didn't reply. I couldn't. Because I had a different storm to face. Tom was in the kitchen when I came downstairs. Sunday morning. Pancakes on the stove. News on low volume. Like it was any normal day. I watched him for a moment from the hallway. His back to me. Whistling. How many times had I seen this version of him? The good husband? Helpful. Casual. Predictable. A man with 2 lives. I stepped into the room. He turned and smiled. Morning. You okay? You look. I cut him off. We need to talk. His smile faded. What's wrong? I didn't answer. Just stood there. Waiting. He set the spatula down slowly. That's when he knew. His voice dropped. Is this about something at work? I didn't move. Liam, I said. This is about Liam. His face went pale. Like the blood had drained all at once. I nodded slowly. You know. Don't you? Silence. Then. I can explain. I almost laughed. You can explain? Really? Because I think I figured it out on my own pretty well. He looked away. It was years ago. Before you and I were serious. That's a lie. My voice cracked. He's 4, Tom. He swallowed hard. Rubbed his jaw. Okay. It was right around the time we got married. But I didn't know she was pregnant. Not for sure. She told you. She said she might be. She said she didn't want me involved. She didn't want you involved because you ran. Because you made her feel like a burden. Like a secret to keep. He didn't deny it. Just stood there, looking smaller by the second. I didn't want to ruin what we had, he said quietly. I stepped closer. What we had? You mean the marriage built on lies? On omissions? His voice rose, defensive now. I loved you. I still do. I thought if I kept that part separate. You had a child. I yelled. And you never told me. I thought it was better that way. For who, Tom? For Liam? For me? Or just for you? He slumped into a chair, hands in his hair. I messed up. I know. But I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't even know Clara lived nearby, or that you'd ever end up working for her. That was never the plan. But you recognized her name. When I first mentioned it, you lied. I panicked. I stared at him for a long, long time. This was a man I once wanted children with. A man I thought I could build a life with. And now I could barely look at him without seeing Liam's eyes. I love that boy, I whispered. I cared for him like he was mine. Tom looked up. I believe you. Do you? I snapped. Because you abandoned him. Like he was nothing. Like he wouldn't matter. His voice cracked. He did matter. That's why I stayed out of it. I thought, maybe it was better for him not to know. Maybe Clara would be better without me. And maybe, I said, ice in my voice, you just didn't want to take responsibility. He didn't respond. I walked to the counter, grabbed my keys, my coat. My hands were shaking. Where are you going? He asked quietly. I don't know. Can we fix this? I turned back, barely able to keep my voice steady. No, because you broke more than trust, Tom. You broke people. I left. I didn't know where I was going. Not yet. But I knew I couldn't go back to pretending. Not to the marriage. Not to the man who lied. Not to the version of my life I thought was real. Chapter 7. The space between then and now. It's been 3 weeks. 3 weeks since I walked out that door and didn't look back. Tom tried calling. A lot at first. Long texts. Apologies. Rambling voicemails. All the right words. Too late. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. I stayed with my sister for a while. She didn't ask questions. Just gave me tea, a blanket, and the guest room key. I spent a lot of time not talking. Just sitting. Staring at the wall. Replaying everything in my head, over and over, like I could rewrite it by remembering it differently. But the facts always stayed the same. My husband had a child with another woman. He hid it from me. That child was the little boy I read bedtime stories to, tied shoelaces for, kissed on the forehead during nap time. Liam. God, it hurt to even say his name in my head. The first few days, I couldn't even think about him without crying. Not because of the betrayal, not directly, but because I missed him. I missed him. The child. The softness of his laugh. The way he reached for my hand without even looking up. How he lit up when I praised his drawings. And now, what was I to him? Nothing. A temporary chapter? Just another adult who left? That thought hurt more than anything Tom did. Then, one morning, I got a letter. Not a text. Not an email. A letter, tucked into a pale blue envelope, left on my sister's porch. It was from Clara. The handwriting was neat. Unemotional. But the words were honest. You were good to him. That's all that matters to me. I didn't expect this to end well, but I didn't expect it to hurt this much, either. He asks about you every day. He made a card for you. It's on the fridge. I understand if you never want to see either of us again. I just wanted you to know you mattered. You still do. I cried reading it. For the first time in days, I really cried. And then, I made a decision. That afternoon, I drove to Clara's house. Not to demand answers. Not to scream. Just to see him. One more time. She opened the door with tired eyes and didn't say anything. She just stepped aside. Liam was on the floor with his dinosaurs. He looked up, and when he saw me, he smiled so wide it hurt. Nana! He ran to me like nothing had changed, like no time had passed, like the world hadn't cracked open under our feet. I dropped to my knees and hugged him so tight I could barely breathe. "I missed you," he whispered. I pulled back and smiled, even through the tears. "I missed you more, buddy. We didn't talk about the big things. He's 4. He doesn't need the big things. He just needs love, presence, stability." Clara offered to let me visit now and then. No pressure, no strings. I said yes. Not for her. Not for Tom. For Liam. Because while I can't undo the past, or erase the betrayal, I can still choose what kind of person I want to be in the aftermath. And I choose to be the kind that shows up. Every time. Epilogue. I filed for divorce 2 days after the visit. Quietly. Calmly. No fights. No drama. Tom didn't fight it. Maybe he knew there was nothing left to fight for. Some wounds don't bleed loudly. Some just sit deep, like a silence that never leaves the room. But here's what I've learned. Truth has a way of surfacing, even in the perfect homes, even behind the perfect smiles. Especially there. I was a nanny. Then I was something else. Now, I'm just a woman finding her way forward, one honest step at a time. And sometimes, that's more than enough.